Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to our third Marketers Toolkit workshop, Building an Email Marketing Strategy That Delivers. This series was designed to help you build and sharpen your skills for the next level. My name is Karen McFarlane and I'm president of the American Marketing Association, New York. As you well know, because you are here, email marketing is at the core of our marketing strategies since perhaps the explosion on the scene in maybe the late 1990s. The ability to send one-to-one messages customized at scale has transformed our communications despite the newer channels that have emerged. So no matter what multi-channel approach you take, or whether you are a B2B, B2C, D2C, or some combination, email remains a reliable tool through which to spark engagement and revenue. But in order to leverage it, you must master it. So today, you will learn how to overcome the greatest email challenges marketers face, the 5 types of email marketing programs that should be a part of your strategy, the power of automation to drive high-value campaigns, and you'll walk away with a framework for building your strategy. And who's going to provide that expert advice? Karen Talavera, founder of Synchronicity Marketing. But before I introduce her, I would like to extend 3 thank yous. First, to our premier partner, Greenbook, for supporting the AMA New York year-round. If you're looking for top market research firms, consultants, tools, case studies, or other resources, visit greenbook.org. Second, to our dedicated board and volunteers who work tirelessly behind the scenes to make these types of events happen. And finally, a special thank you to our Chair of Career Development and Networking Programs, Esther Elkus, who works every day to deliver valuable programming to our community. Let me just move this over. First, I'd like to tell you a little bit about AMA New York. AMA New York thrives at the center of the world's most influential business city. We raise the profile of marketing, provide professional development and networking opportunities, and serve as a resource of marketing industry events and news that focus on you, the marketer. As an award-winning chapter for our membership, programming, and communications, we work every day to inspire, support, and celebrate brilliance in marketing. As an AMA New York member, you have access to the most relevant and compelling knowledge base of data, tools, and people available in New York and beyond. And so I invite you to join this dynamic organization to access the essential resources you need to upskill, expand your network and knowledge through a full schedule of events around new innovations, special interests, and emerging trends. You can network among your peers and connect with leaders who help shape the future of marketing, build your personal brand, and advance your career. And elevate your leadership profile by volunteering, providing your expertise or resources, or participating in our mentoring program. Whatever your career level or industry, from student to executive marketer, AMA New York is for you. And to that end, we have many exciting events coming up. So check our events page and our social media to stay tuned. Just an overview on our next events. On January 14th, Jacqueline Strayer will host a Young Women at Work workshop on navigating stressful conversations and toxic behaviors in the workplace. On January 21st, board member Young Mi Park kicks off our second Women in Marketing series called Take Your Seat at the Table with Margaret Malloy, Global CMO of Siegel & Gale. And on January 27th, we are hosting a panel on how COVID changed the need for digital engagement with executive marketers from Warner Brothers, A&E Networks, and PBS. So before we begin, just stop sharing. Just a reminder that after Karen's presentation, we'll leave about 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A. So feel free to use the chat to ask any questions you might have. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Karen Talavera. Again, Karen is founder and principal of Synchronicity Marketing, a data-driven a data-driven digital marketing consultancy. As current vice chair of the Email Experience Council, she is a recognized global expert, thought leader, speaker, and professional educator with 20 years of experience in email and digital marketing strategy. Karen has contributed to e-commerce performance improvements for countless consumer brands in retail, packaged goods, financial services, travel, healthcare, and tech, including Google, Disney, Kendo Brands, City National Bank, AAA, Fidelity, Amway, and many more. Previously, Karen held senior marketing positions at YesMail, Axiom Digital, and Experian. Karen, I used to work at Return Path, so email was for a time at the center of my universe, along with all these ESP brands. So I'm very pleased to welcome you today. So I am going to turn the floor over to you now. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that great intro, Karen. And yes, we are definitely email kindred spirits. Well, welcome everyone. I'm delighted that so many could join today. And I want to just dive right in because there's a lot to share with you. I am certainly honored and grateful to be here. And what better time is there than the beginning of a year to really get your digital strategy, all your marketing strategies nailed down, but especially get your email house in order. And that's where our focus is going to be today, is specifically on this linchpin of a channel that ties so many other things together. But of course, this wouldn't be without challenges, and marketing is ever evolving. We have certainly seen a banner year for evolution in the digital space, right? If you weren't already on the path to digital transformation, I'm sure you are, or your company is now. And that goes both for marketing and for how we get and buy things as consumers for e-commerce, certainly. So the focus today is going to be on establishing and getting into the right mindset before I take you into skill set. So again, big picture before tactics, because more important than knowing what and how to do things is knowing why you're doing them. I think that's where a lot of people get sort of lost with email marketing. It's never getting a chance to understand the why and the purpose behind certain strategies, or the purpose behind why they're sending what they're sending. So we really want to understand that. And the right mindset for email success today is a relationship building mindset. So just as you would build relationships in the real world with real people, we want to think of our audiences and subscribers not just as data points or prospects or potential people ringing our cash register, but as individuals that we want to have relationships with, which means that we nurture new and budding relationships, okay? That we don't treat every single person exactly the same. We segment and personalize our messaging efforts. We ultimately, yes, want to sell something, and we want to build relationships that produce value for the company, whether that is a sale, whether that's a purchase, whether that is in the media space, in the publishing space, viewers, readers, eyeballs, as they call it, whether we're seeking money, we're seeking attention, we need to sell by way of serving people. So we need to express the value that's in it for them. We do that by striving to have conversations with our email marketing versus just always broadcasting, although there's a place for both, as you'll see, with the goal being ultimately to build a long-term relationship, meaning loyalty. So much of email marketing today, I think, dovetails perfectly with customer loyalty marketing, which has been around, forever, for a good 40, 50 years in the modern era. We need to be thinking loyalty as the end goal. Why is this so important in this channel? Because especially when it comes to reaching people in their inboxes, which are more loaded than ever before, we have to get them to engage in order to survive. I'll go a little bit more into why that is so important. And like I said, email is continually evolving, digital is continually evolving. More kind of big picture mindset here is to understand that the old school way of advertising and marketing, which was mostly one-way broadcast to mass, through mass channels to mass audiences, that had a very kind of singular focus and one size fits all orientation, is not going to cut it today. That old school way of doing things was focused on creating demand or awareness, or both, versus value, loyalty, and relationships, with the primary intent to sell versus serve. So of course, this is a model we're used to with all mass advertising channels like traditional newspaper, magazine, traditional print, radio, TV. But with the advent of the digital era, that started to change, and the orientation and I think the approach was flipped from broadcast to conversation, um, from where digital channels are one component now of an omni-channel dialogue. So email is one component of this digital dialogue that's happening through everything from social media to SMS to in-app messaging to transactions and interactions on websites, to possibly even, you know, customer service calls or online chats. So we've got to segment our messages and vary them in content, tone, offers by where somebody is in the life cycle stage, by who they are demographically and psychographically. And with that focus on creating long-term relationships and loyalty, our approach is again serving first before we're asking people for their time or for their money. So the new school is very different from the old, and they're existing simultaneously, which I think is really interesting and makes email this really powerful bridge between the two, as well as a solid player in kind of that new school digital realm. But email is constantly challenged as one of the oldest channels, you know, in the digital realm, in one-to-one. It's competing with an ever increasing number of other digital channels, plus an ever increasing number of messages showing up in the inbox. Well, all of that gets balanced against decreasing time. And really, I should say finite time, because we're all only going to ever have, you know, 24 hours in 7 days a week. Okay. So we have limited time as consumers to do anything, and we have a lot more to deal with, which begs the question, you know, where does email fit in? How are people prioritizing it vis-a-vis other digital channels? And how do we get them to either pay more attention to it or to stand out in the inbox during the time that they are actually dedicating to this channel? The second challenge is, I think, you know, kind of goes hand in hand with finite time, declining attention spans. So when we used to have more time to pay attention to one channel or one thing, we now have more competing for our time. There was a study done by Nielsen Norman Group back in 2015. You might have seen this stat, it's been circulating for a while, indicating that the human attention span had dropped to less than that of a goldfish. It was down from 12 seconds to 8 seconds, where the attention span of the goldfish was supposed to be 9 seconds. Honestly, the way people process emails is in sometimes even sub-second time, because they'll look at just what's in the inbox from a subject line and a from line standpoint. They will spend less than 10 seconds average time on a web page. Okay. So again, the question is, how do we stand out the inbox, let alone get engagement? And I think it boils down to this $1 million word we've heard a ton: relevancy, which I would define as the intersection of context, content, and frequency. So reaching people with the right content exactly when they are in market or in the right context for what we need, and often enough that we're giving them an opportunity to act. The third challenge is subconscious or even unconscious decision making. Now, this is where behavioral economics comes into play, and I love, and I have all sorts of other, you know, presentations and have spoken on the psychology, you know, of email marketing and really the psychology of digital. But what we know about human behavior is about 95% of our decisions are taking place in the subconscious mind. And we use shortcuts and we use, you know, all manner of patterning in our brains to make decisions that are routine, that we have to make all the time. We're mostly running on autopilot, because if we didn't, we would not possibly have, you know, the time or the processing power to be able to decide things over and over again when they are routine decisions that we make. So the bearing on email is that all of us develop different routine habits for how we deal, you know, with the messages that come into the inbox. And different members of your audience, different segments of your subscriber base may process very distinctly from one another. There are those that, as with anything in tech, are early adopters, power users, blow through their email messages, trying to get to what we call inbox zero, which is having nothing in the inbox on a daily basis. There are others that have, 5,000 messages stacked up, or they don't really read most of their promo emails. They get to it once a week. It's kind of all over the place. So there's that going on. Then there's also how people react to the typical email message when it comes in, which is that they scan for keywords and key identifiers before they decide to do anything. So I would say if we just look at those top 3 challenges, we definitely have a lot in front of us. We've got a full plate to deal with, which is why I constantly preach the importance of having a strategy for any channel program. Now more than ever, with those challenges, with limited time, more channels, more volume, unconscious decision-making, people running on autopilot, we need to be building our foundation on strategy, not shoot from the hip, not here's what my competitors are doing, but an actual roadmap that makes sense. And that's what I hope to deliver to you today. So again, final thoughts in the mindset part of this are how we do that, how we go into thinking about strategy is to put the audience first. And being audience centric means in this channel, giving people true choice and control over whether or not they want to receive email from us in the first place, and then how they can change or control the flow. How often, maybe there's frequency preferences or interest preferences. Choice and control go hand in hand and include the opportunity to end the receipt of emails, to unsubscribe, to stop the flow, which means we're listening and responding to people as they change or modify their preferences. And as they're interacting with us through the website, which is usually where, through our websites, usually where we're sending them from email, but also we're listening and responding to how they interact with us in other digital channels. And if we're doing that, if we're giving choice and control and listening and responding and adapting, we build trust with people, which hopefully allows us to surprise and delight them because we're creating more relevant, customized messaging that is aligned to the typical journeys or pathways that people go down. That means, and again, in the spirit of listening and responding, knowing what triggers someone to begin a customer journey, to be interested in us, potentially as paying customers. Maybe they're just in the research phase or the inquiry phase of being a prospect. So we want to know what starts their journey and then the different paths to purchase that they might be going down. And those can be, extremely winding or long and winding, depending on the product and service of the business you're in, and depending on the channel combinations in which people can interact. So when it comes to creating email strategy, it certainly helps to understand journeys down to what encourages people through a pathway and what discourages them, because those are the exact inflection points at which we can automate and structure email messages to help people more fluidly progress down their journey faster or get them over the humps and prevent them from stalling out. So for all campaigns that we may be thinking about, and what you're going to see momentarily is a roadmap for creating an email strategy by different types of campaigns. But regardless of what arena of email campaigns we're talking about, the fundamentals haven't changed. And this is truly the fundamentals of all direct response marketing, which, email is kind of traditional direct response on steroids. We need to define our objective. So again, knowing our why. Why are we going to send what we want to send? Why are we going to do a campaign? What is it we need to accomplish? And then who are we trying to reach? What motivates them? Okay. And this will feed into the how you do it, what would motivate our audience to action? Is it discounts? Is it content? Is it exclusivity? Which then allows us to determine our call to action, our offers, our creative, and possibly our timing and frequency, because certainly many email campaigns are not just a one-shot message. They're a series, they're a sequence, they're well orchestrated, um, multi-part, a collection of email messages that may have customized branches to different people. We might even want to test while we're deploying and setting up campaigns to see what motivates people better, offer A versus offer B. Obviously, many of you probably already tested subject lines or simple elements of your creative so that you can have something to define your metrics by and to measure in order to continuously improve the process and apply your learning for the next time. So email is just such a great proving ground and learning lab for optimizing response, because we've got a lot of bells and whistles to play with and a lot that we can change up within a campaign and over time as we go forward. All right, so let's segue from the mindset into the skill set part of this, which is where I want to present to you the blueprint for email success. Following a blueprint ensures that you are actually going to get to success, and it helps to have a roadmap. So hopefully all of you had a chance to download the free Blueprint for Email Success PDF. And if you haven't, I know the link will be made available. But that actually steps you through this framework that I'm about to present. So why a framework? Why a blueprint, if we want to call it that? Just like an architect would have a blueprint, for a new structure, it helps us to have a plan and to understand that different parts of, in this case, the analogy is to a building, different parts of our channel program do different things for us. So just like a building needs a solid foundation, we need those types of campaigns and messages that build a foundation of communication with our audience. And then we need the types of campaigns and messages that also kind of create infrastructure, meaning they keep our endeavor running. They feed us new leads or new sales or new customers. We also need messages that fulfill specific purposes. They have a specific utility. So just as elevators, meet a specific need in a building, or the restrooms or the break room, we're going to have those components. In addition, we need breaks from the infrastructure, the foundational, the utilitarian messages with amusement and fun, which are great engagers for people, just like we might have an outdoor space as you see here. And then we need the hyper-specific messages that just do one particular thing that we need to accomplish or that we want our audience to accomplish. So they'll have a specific function, all right? And that might be the case, with something like a server room in a building. So that's kind of the analogy I'll set you up with as we look at this blueprint, which you're seeing here, as a pyramid, and there's a reason for that. But basically it consists of building an email strategy along 5 levels of messaging. The bottom level being that foundational level. And that's the broadest touch to most of your audience or list. The second level being the promotional level. Not quite as broad because not everybody might qualify for promotions, and you're going to start segmenting at this level. The third level is the informational level. And you could see how, as the pyramid gets narrower going toward the top, your targeting and segmentation is going to get more refined as we move up through these levels. The fourth is a level called engagers, which encompasses some of the fun or the amusing things. And I'll show you examples of those. And the fifth is the one-to-one personal level, which is usually highly automated email. So there's an inverse relationship between the segmentation, the audience selection from the bottom to the top of the pyramid, and the volume of email you'll send. At the top of the pyramid, where you have this one-to-one, very highly personalized segmentation, sending to very small groups or individual people, your send volume is very low, but you're highly targeted. At the bottom, where you have broadly targeted messages going to larger segments of your list, obviously you're going to have more volume going out the door. Now, interestingly, in almost every program I've worked on for clients, the highly segmented, those one-to-one personalized messages that are coming at exactly the right time. And examples are things like an abandoned cart reminder or a renewal reminder. Even though they have the lowest volume, often produce the majority of revenue or response. So there's kind of an 80-20 rule at play. Now, the other thing that you should be aware of is these top 3 levels I've defined as informational, engagers, and the one-to-one highly personalized are still incredibly underutilized today because they can be more technologically time consuming or complicated to set up. They often require data integrations, or they require a more advanced knowledge of the platform you're using. And they certainly require a platform that has good automation capabilities. But they are absolutely worth the investment, as is understanding and having the tools and the technical knowledge to execute them. And again, like I said, the higher up we go in the levels of the pyramid, the more segmented and targeted our messages are going to be, but the more responsive the audience. The studies I've seen over the years bear this out. If we just look at simple metrics like open, click-through rates, and conversion rates, we can see the difference clearly between a very broadly targeted email campaign like a newsletter versus an inactive customer reactivation campaign versus an abandoned cart email. Now, there's another sort of psychological mindset reason why we don't want a one-size-fits-all program, why I'm showing you a strategy roadmap aligned to 5 different types or levels of campaigns. And that is what I call variety is the spice of life. Kind of common saying, but what it means in marketing is that people become immune to and ignore repetition when they're constantly getting the same thing over and over again. And I remember, back in the heyday of catalog marketing, when you'd get, 5 catalogs from the same brand in 1 week, and they all essentially look the same or they're positioned the same, we start to tune out. Both predictability and unpredictability in messaging strategy are effective, meaning that yes, people do like to get the things they're counting on a regular basis, but they also love to be surprised and delighted. So we should interrupt our own patterns when we can. Now, certainly in email, over promoting is just considered completely self-serving. We want to be audience-centric, audience first. So content marketing has become huge, and it's a great way to break up a heavy promotional pattern and do that selling by way of serving. One-to-one messaging is highly personal, will stand out more, especially if we're coming in at the right time. Overall variety increases utility, increases usefulness, and increases channel engagement. So that's the rationale. That's the why behind you should be structuring a program that has messaging at all of the 5 different levels. All right, so I want to break down these levels for you one by one. And I'm going to move quickly through the first couple because these should be very familiar to most of us. We've been receiving these kinds of email for close to 2 decades. Foundational level, the purpose, is broad touches to most of our list. We need to maintain a baseline of communication in email, and we want to create continuity. These types of programs can be excellent umbrella messages that can encompass a lot of different things that we may need to communicate if higher overall email send volume is a challenge. And they can reinforce standalone messages. So say, a newsletter can mention a latest promotion, but also reinforce a dedicated promotional email. Defining characteristics at this level are usually low segmentation or no segmentation, a wide content and topical range, but organized content, a regular predictable cadence or schedule. And these do tend to be more content versus purely promotional. So of course, we're going to see things like newsletters, bulletins, community news fall into this category, but also things like new product introductions, new feature alerts, or holiday greetings. There's a couple of examples here, and you're going to continue to see examples as we go through these levels. But here's Miami Dolphins. I happen to be down in South Florida saying, hey, we're launching, a weekly newsletter. And hey, this is how, this was from 2020. Here's how 2020 feels. But you also have practical communications like announcements, such as the one that you see here from Uber. As we go through these levels, I drew examples from both a business to consumer and a business to business brand. And so our business to consumer brand is a content media brand. It's National Geographic. Obviously, they have content ranging from online, print, to broadcast, cable TV, all of that. And they do a lot of email to draw people to all of the places where they have content, whether that's the print publication, or to watch programming. So in the foundational level for NatGeo, they have a weekly curated update on top stories inside NatGeo. You could call this a newsletter or an email publication. And our B2B example is going to be LinkedIn, obviously a very established brand, again, with weekly curated news stories. Now, think about the fact that, for a second, if we wanted to be really sophisticated, if we were either of these brands, we could dynamically customize on an subscriber by subscriber, individual person basis, what goes into these types of email programs, what actually populates the content. NatGeo is not doing that. What they're doing is looking at traffic to some of their top stories and probably making their content decisions that way. But LinkedIn has so much individual user behavior and is tracking everything we click on when we're in that platform that they could literally custom curate a different version of this for every subscriber. And they do that with some of their email. So there is, again, a level of sophistication technologically needed for all of that. But at a minimum, if we're doing the curation and not even trying to dynamically customize, still sending something on a regular basis is going to keep people coming back to us and engaging with all of the content that both of these brands certainly have to offer. All right, moving on to level 2, promotional. This is, of course, the email that's trying to sell something directly or indirectly. And there is quite a bit of email, and there's certainly plenty of marketers out there, many of you, that can't directly sell online. You're not an e-commerce business model, or you don't have an e-commerce component. So email is still indirectly trying to influence sales and move people along the customer relationship. And that could be raising awareness of merchandise, products, and services, providing helpful content for decision-making, or encouraging even free use or trial. The defining characteristics are often that these are going to be at least somewhat segmented, more so than at the foundational level, but that they will be and have a sense of urgency or deadlines, brevity. They're price and offer centric. They're seasonally themed. And if they are segmented, they're usually taking into consideration customer purchase history and purchase behavior. So here's one from Dell, okay, that was promoting PCs. This is pretty standard, buy a new laptop, straightforward kind of email, $200 promo with a prepaid Visa card, and a little bit seasonally themed to last fall when it came out in October. The types that fall into the promotional category, other than that direct selling, could be couponing, limited time or quantity offers, even things like flash sales, which Groupon pioneered back in the day, membership or subscription offers, free trial, or trying to get people in as free users with a premium upgrade. So the whole freemium business model. And a lot of times we won't see discounting happening here, even though that is the go-to tactic. We will see product category or product bundle features, bestseller promotions, that kind of thing. In terms of the flash sales or limited time and quantity offers, we saw, of course, tons of that. We just went through holiday. So, you'll see brands send things like final hours for a discount. But back to our two marquee brands here, NatGeo and LinkedIn. National Geographic still publishing, the at least 100-year-old journal that they've had forever. We'll do email, with promotions on subscriptions to that. And LinkedIn, of course, while they're trying to sell many different services, including advertising, will also do promotions for upgrading to premium. Now, this happened to be a $50 advertising coupon that they're sending to business users on LinkedIn or those that have a company profile, which is why I received it. So moving up to the middle of our pyramid here, level 3, we get into the informational, or sometimes you would call this educational level of messaging, the purpose of which is to nurture relationships over time by informing, instructing, or even entertaining people so they can make decisions about whether or not to engage with you and why they should. So why your brand versus the competition. Or they can make better decisions about a more complex product or service that they might need more information about in order to decide whether or not to buy. Something that comes to mind immediately would be insurance or financial services. The messaging at this level creates what I call the KLT factor, which stands not for my initials, even though that's what they are, but the know, like, and trust factor. We want to help people get to know us, like us, and trust us. So everyone's been creating content now for a while. Chances are we have content created for other digital channels that we can leverage in email and hopefully don't have to start from scratch. And I would say like the advent of that was when people started blogs and now YouTube channels. So a lot of us have written content or video content that we could easily plunk into email. The beauty of these is that they create those welcome breaks from promotional messaging and allow us to not be the friend who only calls when we need something, which is how we look if we're just constantly blasting promos out there. Defining characteristics are, these are very content centric. Video is huge, but they often come as a series. So you'll hear terms like drip campaigns, nurture campaigns, which means that we're constantly dripping out small amounts of content on people over several messages. And the beauty of these is that they have a low commitment factor, meaning we're not asking someone to buy or schedule time on our calendar or book an appointment or see a demo. We're just asking them to look at something or read something. They can be interesting or fun. And there's usually more in it for the recipient than for us. This is a perfect example. All of the messages at this level that I'll show you are a perfect example of selling by way of serving first. So I pulled this example from one of my favorite grocery brands called Sprouts. They may not be in all parts of the country, but they are certainly in many parts now. They kind of started out in the West in California, more recently came to Florida. So what happened during the pandemic is they knew that people were, stuck at home, and they're trying to put useful content out there in terms of recipes and video cooking instruction. And they had, like a expert of the day kind of thing. Because of course, people were also stuck having to cook for themselves where maybe they would be eating out more. So this was a perfect synergy, with that kind of brand. So just a 30-second kind of infomercial here for content marketing. If you're unfamiliar with that term or you haven't done a deep dive, this is a great book that I would recommend, written by two colleagues well established in digital, Ann Hanley of Marketing Profs and CC Chapman. They literally did write the book on content marketing. This probably came out close to a decade ago. And they define it as giving away something valuable in order to sell something related, which is exactly what Sprouts did, giving away valuable recipe tips and how-to videos in order to sell food. Now, really doing it well kind of requires you to get into a publisher or media company mindset. But I would encourage you, if you haven't, to constantly think about what content you could create that you haven't created, because it will have a great shelf life over not just email, but social media as well. Content marketing can be behaviorally driven, so you can give people choices about what they want to hear about from you. You can look at where they're clicking on your website, how they're interacting with you, what videos, for example, or social posts are most popular. It can be contextually driven, meaning what do you know about who the person is in order to make content more relevant? Or it can be preference driven. As you see here, this is an example, a screenshot of a preference center from the Deepak Chopra Center that offers all kinds of virtual and live events, meditation programs, and plenty of content where you can pick and choose what you want to hear about in email from their preferences center. So the types of email that would fall into this category are, of course, anything that's nurturing new prospects or leads to become customers. That's common in B2B. Anything that is inviting people to engage with us in complementary channels, social, mobile, YouTube, timely news and information, okay? Which is something that the mobile app All Trails, which is for hikers and nature lovers, did when the national parks shut down, about 2 years ago when there was a government shutdown. They wanted to communicate how people could either still access the parks and what services would or would not be available, and how we can still, do good for nature. Helpful tools, useful features, how-to videos or articles, tip sheets. I mean, the list of the types of content that you could create is almost endless. And then the way you could version that into email, I think also virtually endless. But any way that you can give people small, steady, useful chunks of information is going to be helpful. We see product category or brand education, affinity content to maintain engagement between buying cycles. This really came up in 2020 for travel brands, because what happened? All of a sudden, people weren't going anywhere. Airlines and hotels were struggling. So Marriott, in their points loyalty program, did this campaign. I love this, just the copy and the tone of it, where they had you reading this virtual letter to travel. It's like you're writing to the travel gods. It's been a while since we've spent time together. Let's plan our next big adventure soon. And then, this is a longer message that goes on to giving people travel ideas or ideas for just getting outside and thinking about anticipating what they will do when it was possible to travel again. Some of this is extremely practically focused, new user training, okay, right? For tech services or software platforms or apps. New customer onboarding is relevant to everybody, including, even the most basic of consumer brands. So what do we have going on with NatGeo? They will do favorite videos of the week. Okay, now obviously they are a media publisher, so they've got a ton of content. Content is not going to be their problem. But I love that, they're specifically singling out video because people love video. Engagement with video is huge. So if you've got it and you could feature it in email, do it. It doesn't have to, don't worry about the technicality of, or the technology of, does the email have to be able to play? Does the video have to be able to play in the email? That is possible. It is doable these days. But even if you're just putting a thumbnail and linking people to video, totally fine. For LinkedIn, they did a new features release update. Okay, so this is, again, practical, kind of learn more about events updates that will help your business grow. Here's what we have to offer. It's a new feature in LinkedIn, and they're going to educate their audience about it. Now, one of my personal favorites of these 5 levels is definitely this one, level 4, the engagers, which is kind of a little, broad platter, if you will, of different types of messages, the primary purpose of which is to reactivate engagement, to get people to show signs of life. And we do that by entertaining, amusing, and involving them. So they have to take an action. We're often collecting feedback and input, but psychologically, we're further developing this conditioned pattern of responding to low commitment actions. Okay, like just clicking, watching, reading something, taking a poll, taking a quiz, in order to get people to know, like, and trust us, but also to reduce their resistance to taking high commitment actions. So that's why the informational messages and the engager messages that give people easy, fun things to do actually pre-pave the way for them to buy, to take actions, or to commit to something that they might have anxiety about. And if we didn't have these, it might take a lot longer or a lot more promotional pounding on people to get them down the customer journey to becoming a customer, to get them all the way down the path. And again, these are great pattern interrupters, as I've talked about. And they're usually not content heavy. They are audience focused. They often leverage interaction in complementary digital channels. They are experience centric, like this one. This is from Diamond Resorts, which is a vacation ownership brand, timeshares for the most part. Again, with people not traveling last year in the pandemic, mid-year, they started doing a series of virtual concerts. So great, why not tie a virtual event into your brand that somebody might normally be engaging with because they are going to travel to go to a real event? And this is just completely audience serving. It's fun, it's low commitment, and it's a great freebie, actually. So other than that, though, other types can be educational. We can have interactive webinars, or again, like virtual concert series. That educational component could cross into entertainment or infotainment. We can have feedback-oriented messages like this one, which lead people to ratings, review requests, surveys, polls, or rewards-driven messages like sweepstakes and contests. So in this category, National Geographic has done an annual photo contest for years, and they'll do a lot of email promoting the contest and getting people to enter, and then do the announcement of who the winner was. And people always want to see the winners of this, because even novice photographers, can submit and do, and often win. LinkedIn will allow you to set up customized updates and job alerts, okay? And they also launched a new initiative called the Virtual Mom Collective. So they have groups. They have almost, mastermind groups. And again, you can configure in your preferences what you get. So they'll make sure to constantly be letting you know what's going on, pull you back into the platform with email. So to wrap this blueprint up, let's go to the top of the pyramid. Level 5, one-to-one personal messaging, are all of those emails we see responding to specific behavior that subscribers take, that we as subscribers take, or lack of behavior, or personal characteristics like anniversaries and birthdays. The point of which is to stimulate action. We want, when we send these types of emails, we want somebody to do something specific. And it's all about reaching the right person at the right time, and hopefully recognizing their past behavior plus key personal milestones and things that we know about them and their purchase history. These are almost always automated and have to be in order to be triggered at the perfect times, or triggered in response to behavior. And again, the research bears out that they pay off. eMarketer found that B2C marketers who connect with customers through automated emails see conversion rates as high as 50%. Okay. Another study found companies that automate emails are 133% more likely to send messages that properly coincide with purchase cycles, again, that align with the customer journey. So of course, these are going to be highly personalized. They often will have dynamically customized content. They're going to an audience of one most of the time, or a very small group. They're deployed using automation or rules-based marketing, and they are the lowest volume, usually highest response. They're personalized often not just by name, but by content, okay? So again, we can pull in, stats of somebody's past purchases, or we can show what they left abandoned in their shopping cart, for example, to make the experience more relevant to them and to echo the latest behavior that they already took in a different channel. Types run the gamut from welcome messages to, like I've mentioned several times, browse or cart abandonment, birthday and anniversary emails, cross-sell and upsell. But I like the ones that are more sophisticated and do things like recommend the next product or service that someone should purchase. Amazon does a lot of that. Or that recognize a transaction with a post-purchase thank you. Expedia has been also very good at doing cross-sell, upsell, and next logical product recommendations. So if you book a flight somewhere, they're going to ask if you also need hotel and rental cars. or they're going to tune you into events and entertainment happening in the destination that you're headed to. Welcome emails are low-hanging fruit in this category. And, by God, if you don't have a new subscriber welcome, you absolutely should. It's a staple. They are wonderful for beginning customer relationships, and they pay huge dividends, get some of the highest open rates out there. Again, they're going to typically be automated. And most email service providers, even the more self-serve, small business oriented platforms like MailChimp or Constant Contact, have the automation to do welcome emails. They're especially important for retailers because they often result in the first purchase happening if it hasn't happened already, which is the way a lot of people come onto a retail list. They buy something, they have to provide the email. But a lot of times, as we as consumers know, we go to a website of a brand intending to buy, not sure, but also wanting the deals and discounts before we do. So we sign up for email before we purchase anything. And that welcome message comes, and if it's done right, might get us over the threshold into buying sooner versus later. Here's a welcome email from a retail brand called Johnnie. They're a clothing brand for women. And, kind of goes beyond just the first purchase discount. You see here, it's 20% off, by familiarizing people with the brand, with the fact that they have an online catalog, with the product categories, with custom gift giving. And often this can be a series of messages, even though I'm just showing you one single email from them. So in the vein of this, what National Geographic has done is send a preferences request email. I love these, where they're asking their subscribers, what inspires you? What's interesting to you? So they could better curate the content that they serve on the site and in email. And again, this is an email message pictorially showing different categories that somebody can simply click on and then go to a preference center, to indicate more detail. This is a great reactivation effort. And you could argue this kind of falls or crosses between level 4 as an engager and level 5. In LinkedIn's world, they have actually done personalized, dynamically customized content in an alert. So a couple of years ago, one of the big conferences that I attend all the time, the Email Evolution Conference, was taking place. And one of my colleagues actually did a LinkedIn post that featured a photo of us. And LinkedIn said, oh, you were mentioned in a comment, and pulled in the photo. I mean, that is an incredibly, relevant, awesome use of dynamically customized content and personalization and one-to-one messaging. And again, all done with automation. So I want to leave time for questions, but I will just simply say, after setting you up with the framework and the blueprint, it's your turn to use the free workbook to plot out your existing programs, brainstorm the new ones that you'd like to create, and then identify the gaps between where you are today and where you'd like to go. And I've often done that for clients by creating a matrix, something like this in Excel, that actually maps existing programs here in green, identifies missed opportunities across the 5 levels for distinct audience groups, whether that's prospects versus customers, or whether a brand might have, 5 sub-brands, however you need to do it as far as your audiences. Once you identify the new programs in each of the levels that you'd like to launch, here shown in blue, then you would create a priority list. And you would focus your new efforts on, the easiest ones to do that will give you the biggest bang for the buck. So how I typically prioritize is by looking at the revenue opportunity of a program, the ease of operational deployment, what it's going to take to get it done, and the overall level of effort. Okay, do I have to create new content? Do I need to hire a designer? How much, approval process do I have to go through? Because typically, if you plot out the return on investment over or against the level of effort, like you see in the little graph here, it's going to be everything in the upper left-hand corner, high ROI, low level of effort, that is worth doing first. And it is programs like abandoned cart, welcome emails, enhanced segmented promos. announcing new device features, whatever it might be. That's your sweet spot. So if after this, you're finding that you might want more help, please schedule a free consult with me, especially if you are a brand who is e-commerce focused. If email is a huge part of driving new business to your company, then you are, ideal for employing this strategy, and I can ideally help you. If you are, a small business, if you are very small, if you are a solopreneur, feel free to reach out. You're probably not my target audience. I'm just, going to be perfectly honest. You might be struggling getting email off the ground. I could certainly direct you to some great resources. But yes, if you are in the trenches, as a brand that is heavily, focused on email to drive new and additional business for yourself, feel free to schedule a consult, synchronicitymarketing.com/coaching consult, and I'll be in touch. So I'm going to turn it back to our host to handle questions. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat here. And if I don't get to you today, please feel free, to shoot me an email. It's just info@synchronicitymarketing.com, or connect on LinkedIn, or all of the above.
Thank you, Karen. Unfortunately, we're at the top of the hour, so we don't have any time for some questions. But what I think we can do is perhaps we can gather these questions, maybe follow up with you on some of the answers, or do a joint blog post or something that answers those questions kind of holistically, so we can get to them. But I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. However, despite the fact that we didn't get to the Q&A, I think you gave such wonderful insights. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, but I've definitely learned some new strategies, and your architectural framework and blueprint, I think that was just a wonderful way to kind of think through how to organize your email marketing program. There's so many different pieces and so many steps, and in terms of optimizing and determining if you're sending the right thing at the right time, the right place for the right person. So this blueprint, I think, was wonderful for you to share. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And also, thanks.
I'm just scanning some of the questions. Yeah, some of them, they are highly specific to individual situations, and that's the stuff I'm happy to direct people through a response on LinkedIn or an email. But I cannot give a blanket one size fits all answer that's going to work for every brand or every business. But there is help out there.
For sure.
Give people hope.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, and just so everyone knows, we're going to have a recording of this event, and we'll also resend out the PDF, the blueprint that Karen mentioned. So you'll have all that good data in front of you to refer to. But in the meantime, thanks everyone for attending this event. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it. We'll send out the email, as I said, also a post-event survey so we can get your feedback so we can continue to improve. And don't forget to register for our Young Women at Work workshop. That's for people of all genders, next Thursday at the same time. So have a great rest of your week, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.